So, okay, this is a major part of your developmental experience because what this is the thing that leads to you catching a very, very serious situation very early in life. People know that you did 26 years of what was intended to be a life sentence. You're supposed to die in prison.
Yeah,
they
life
know
with
that
no
that
parole plus 20 years.
Yeah,
yes.
they know about that,
Yeah.
but they don't know that there was a previous situation that was just as severe when you were much, much younger, and it resulted from the drug use and the subsequent violence and the robberies and so forth.
Yeah, they came from the robberies. They came, ran up in my house. They didn't ran up in my house. They went to my father's house in New Jersey. Because at the time, I'm living in Brooklyn, living in the Bronx, in the Herb Gates. I'm all up in Harlem. I'm everywhere. But, my brother, Peter, rest in peace, was living in Jersey with my father. And, I'm in New York doing what I do, and I'm coming over, and whenever we get a chance, you know what I mean? Like I said, me and my homies, we went and robbed houses, and, we'll take all the stuff back to my father's basement and go through it. You know what I mean? That's why I read the book of Raw in Harlem. That's why in it talks about the basement. We go down there, we had a big pool table, and we'd dump all the jewelry up there, and they had some fake jewelry called Monet or Moet. You know what I mean?
Monet.
You know what I'm talking about? That was stamped, but it looked real or whatever. So you had to go through the jewelry, find out what was real, things like that. You take the real jewelry, you leave the fake jewelry behind. But after about 40, 50 burglaries, and piles of jewelry left on the pool table, the police found out we was robbing houses. They went to my father, asked him if he could search the basement. My father, he did time because, like we spoke about, he had a charge, against the Queen in Jamaica. My father did 2 years in jail in Jamaica and was scared to death of anything named police, rest in peace. So when they came to him and asked if they could search the basement, he knew I'm down there free basing and the stolen stuff, everything down there, but he didn't want no parts of it, so he allowed them to go in the basement. So when he allowed them to go in the basement, they found all this jewelry down there. None of it was real. That's the stuff we couldn't sell, or we knew we couldn't sell. You know what I mean? TVs, VCRs, the Trinitrons, things like that we had left over. So they went, took all that out. They took it down to the Teaneck police station, and they laid out a bunch of card tables, put some sheet on it, and laid all the jewelry out. And they called everybody that got robbed, you know what I mean? In the whole goddamn town and the surrounding towns, and told them to come down there and look through it if they see anything that was theirs. So when they see anything that was theirs, they said, oh, that's my earrings. So they charged me with that. They said it cost $500. Fake jewelry don't cost no $500, but they said it cost $500 because that's what made it a class C felony.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying? So now I'm looking at 5 years for that. Somebody said, that's my watch, another 5 years. So it went up, I'm looking like 200 goddamn years from all these different burglaries where they knocked it down to like 80 years and then tried to, talk about they wanted to give me a life sentence for it and, all this old crap. But
How old were you? Facing 80 years.
Yeah, I was about 14, 15.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, after they did all of that, I got a what they call a pool attorney. Because like I said, it was a crew of us that was robbing. So we couldn't get, if one person in the crew got a public defender, someone else had to get a lawyer that wasn't a public defender. So it wouldn't be a conflict of interest to have a lawyer out the same office. So I got lucky and got a crew, and got a pool attorney, big shout out to Joseph Contaldi. A little Italian young man at the time in his 20s, but he was a private attorney at the time. Now, Joseph Contaldi, he came in from out of Hackensack. If he's still practicing, you get in trouble in Jersey, go see Joseph Contaldi. But Joseph Contaldi came in, he looked over the case, said, man, they trying to bury you. You know what I mean? So he said, but I think I got an angle. So next thing you know, he came back and he told me, he said, look, being that you don't really live with your father, you're in New York, all the time anyway, and you're paying rent to your father, just get your father to, write an affidavit that you're paying rent, that's your dwelling. Because even though I'm a son, you know what I mean, and I'm still a child, I'm still over in New York, I'm still doing what I do. You know what I mean? So he wrote down that on the affidavit, you know what I mean, that I was paying rent, because by the time all this went through, once he wrote that down in the affidavit, then they took it to the judge and showed that, we was paying rent for the premises, so my father didn't have permission to give them authorization to search. And that's what threw everything out.
So how long?
And then I wound up copping out. To like 5, 6 of them, but the way Contaldi wrote it so that, because they was going to have to throw it all out. But the way he went about it, I was looking like maybe, it was like 6, 7 of them. So it was looking, trying to give me like 40 years. So Cantali said, nah, we'll take all 7 of those that you know that it's going to be thrown out, but you have to run them all concurrent. You know what I mean? And at the time, I just came out of juvenile jail again. I just came out of jail. So that alone, when I came out, I was on parole and I violated parole and I had to go through a revocation hearing. So the revocation hearing netted me another 5 years, plus the 5 years that we copped out to get everything ran together that was going to get thrown out. And I wound up, back then you do a third of the time. So I did 18 months off of the revocation hearing. And then I did 2 years off the 5 years in Yardsville, Trenton State Prison, Jones Farm, what's the other one? Southern State and Annandale and High Point.
Now, those are adult facilities.
No, back then they had what they called indeterminate sentence. So you got a 7 indeterminate, and when you turn 21, then they send you over into it. But being that I pled guilty at the time, they made them adult charge and gave me a flat number. You know what I mean? So once I had a flat number, they were sending me through Yardsville. I got into it in Yardsville because I caught somebody breaking in my locker, beat them in the head with a mop wringer and busted them up real bad, gave them a couple of 100 stitches. So they sent me over to Trenton. That was just supposed to be a holdover to get me away from Yardsville where they had the juvenile at the time. So but they sent me there for like PC, because this dude lived on the compound, you know what I mean? And I done bust him in the head, gave him a couple of 100 stitches. So they done shot me, you know what I mean, up there just to hold me. But once I went to what they call court line, I was in one left, what they call House of Pain back then. Once I went to court line and beat the court line charge, I met a dude named Fu Quan that was from Newark, New Jersey, Big Fu. If y'all from Jersey, you know what I'm talking about. But I met Fu Quan, and Fu Quan is the one that, let me know that, you ain't even supposed to be here, but, just stay here because it's better.
As a juvenile in an adult prison.
But all this.
That's what he meant. You're not supposed to be here.
Yeah, because I'm supposed to have a regular number. But all this ran over a period of years from in and out of jail. You know what I mean? Coming out, violating probation, being on probation. So all this took over to about, just when I turned 18 is when it turned over. But it was from the juvenile case that it originally started.
Right.
So once I
got a juvenile in a adult hardcore prison.
Yeah, but they did that for PC.
Regardless.
No, I mean, like I say.
But the fact that they did that had something to do with Fu being able to give you the information that helped you to get.
No, exactly, because that's what we went back with. Because then I went and seen, if the old timer from Jersey know, then I went, because they sent me over there to Trenton. Then, Fu and them did the paperwork, and from them doing the paperwork, the jailhouse lawyers at the time, because I couldn't even read them right, they just had me sign the paper. I couldn't even sign. So they, once I did that, then they moved me from there to where they called Jones Farm, which was like the farm to Trenton State Prison, because like I said, I wasn't supposed to be there. So now, after I got there, being that I had the violent charge in Yardsville, that's what they was using to justify that I needed a tighter security to be in a facility, you know what I mean? Right. But we won the case in Trenton, and they sent me to Jones Farm, which is a connection to Trenton. When you get ready to go home, it's like a halfway house type thing to Trenton. So I went to Jones Farm, but, got into it with one of the police there. You know what I mean? It caught me and my man Shane, rest in peace to Shane from Hackensack, caught me and Shane smoking up in the Halo and, started calling us all these niggas and all that. So, of course, I bust him in the face with a pitchfork. And then they sent me over to, what's that other one? Southern State, across from Leesburg. So when I get over there to Southern State, Fu and them was still doing the paperwork, sending it to me. So I folded it out, and then we won the case. So then they said, nah, they got to put me in a juvenile facility. So they moved me from Southern State to Annandale.
So how long were you in the adult facilities?
Off and on, about a year and a half.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
And so you're 15 in this time, 15, 16 in this time. In adult facilities, hardcore adult facilities.
Yeah. But see, back then, the good thing I could say about the brothers that they was locking up back then, they put you under the wing if they know you're going to put in work. You know what I mean? It wasn't like how you hear, they trying to rape this one, rape that one. No, the old heads is going to hold down the youngins and try and guide them. You know what I mean? But the ones that was doing that was already in prison. You understand what I'm saying? So, they was the ones that they wound up getting me a job in when I got to Southern State in the joint, they wound up getting me a job working in the OM, the officer mess hall. I couldn't cook, didn't know nothing about no cooking, but I'm working in the officer mess hall with an old head that took me under the wing. And, like I said, from them helping me with the paperwork, that's how I got to Annandale. So when I got to Annandale, that's a juvenile facility. So just when we won the case, right before we won it, they sent me up to another spot from Annandale called High Point. So I go up to High Point, and when I get up to High Point, they was like, I'm coming from, like you said, from adult, penitentiaries, in the state. And they sent me to a goddamn camp. And this camp was the worst for where I was at mentally. Because when I got to the camp, it was like they telling you in a dorm and they telling you lights go out at 10 o'clock and you can't talk after 10 o'clock. You know what I mean? And you right next door to somebody's bunk and you talking to your man, yo, Cavario, yeah, where you from? Okay, you from such and such. And you got a police that used to walk around and hold the keys and run up and try and catch you talking. And then talk about, I'm giving you a shot. And you get a shot, they send you back, to Annandale. You know what I mean? So I just got tired of that. I told him, man, yo, just send me back to Annandale because all this, too much rules. So they said, nah, only way to get to Annandale is, if you get in a fight or you get a disciplinary. So I just went, got all my property, threw it up there in the front office and told him, man, get me out of here or I'm going to punch you in the face. So give me a threatening shot. You know what I'm saying? So then he talked shit. So I smacked the shit out of him and I wound up going back to Annandale. And then just when I get to Annandale, I won the case about being in Trenton and everything. And I saw somebody that the people from Jersey know back in the day named Sally Carroll. That was the head of the parole office, a female. And, as soon as I walked in for my parole hearing, she just gave me a big hug and just started crying. And this the lady that was burning dudes by denying everybody's parole. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But she gave me a hug and started crying. Said, man, I'm so sorry the system did this to you. And I'm looking at her like she crazy. Like, did what? Because to me, this just became life. You understand what I'm saying? And so she gave me a date. For October 27th, and this was like August. So that's how I wound up getting out after all of that turmoil. And, when I came out, I wound up, coming to Harlem. And, because, I was already in Harlem, the Bronx, Brooklyn, as a kid. So when I came out of jail, I went to Harlem on 154th Street and started, doing me. I said, shit, now everybody freebasing and calling it crack.
Met.
Yeah, exactly. 54. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's when everybody was freebasing, and before that, now they smoking, and now they're getting mad money from it. I was seeing pictures of people coming into jail driving 190 Mercedes-Benz, and I'm like, driving a 190 when I used to take an OJ. You know what I mean? I had a Lincoln Mark IV. Mm-hmm. I had a Saab, but these was, older cars from selling dope, wasn't getting the money they was getting for crack. Mm-hmm. So when I came home, when I was in jail, and I saw people with these pictures and how they was doing, I'm like, man, I got to get mine. You know what I mean? No way am I going to let them get it and I don't get it.
Right.